I was born on April 11, 1908 in Poughkeepsie, New York. I was born to Gaius Bolin and Matilda Ingram Emery. My mother was white and my father was African American and practiced law. My dad's office was full of books on law, and since I was young, I aspired to practice law just like him. My mother fell ill at a point of my life and passed away when I was in elementary school. I worked very hard and diligently as a student and was determined to follow in my father's footsteps. When I was 15, I graduated high school and applied at Wellesley College. Those years were one of the hardest times of my life as I experienced social isolation and discrimination more than ever before. I was only one of the 2 African American students, and we were assigned the same room and forced to live off campus. My college days, for the most part, evoke sad and lonely personal memories. These experiences perhaps were partly responsible for my lifelong interest in the social problems, poverty, and racial discrimination rampant in our country. Despite these lonely and sad experiences, I worked my very best and was recognized as one of the top students. But no matter how hard I worked, my race would be a continuous obstacle. I remember telling my advisor I wanted to be a lawyer, and they told me to give up. I was very discouraged and I didn't want to give up. I secretly applied to Yale and was accepted. In Yale, racism and social discrimination was a norm because I was black and a woman attending law school. There were only 3 women, including myself. In 1931, I became the first black woman to graduate from Yale. After graduation, I went back to my father for a short time and practiced law. Around that time, I fell in love with Ralph Mazel and we married in 1933. We had both studied law and opened a private law firm in New York. It was then that I decided to run as a Republican candidate for New York's 17th District State Assembly. Yup, I lost. And instead I applied for a position as an assistant corporation counsel. During the interview, it was evident I hadn't gotten the position. The interviewer dismissed me on the spot and I was getting ready to leave. But the corporation counsel, Paul Windels, came in and hired me on the spot and told me I was the first African American woman to get this role. This was so unexpected, and I was proud of myself for proving to others that I could do it, regardless of my skin color or gender. I was assigned to the Domestic Relations Court and represented petitioners who could not afford their own lawyer. On July 22, 1939, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia requested to see me at the World's Fair. I thought this was the end of my career. I would get fired or something like that, so I was so nervous. I remember sitting in my seat anxiously until he told me he had appointed me as the first African American woman judge. I was stunned and couldn't process what he had said. This was the biggest news of my life, and I was ready to help the world. Again, I was assigned to the Domestic Relations or Family Court. This was a challenging experience, and sometimes from the bench I would ask the children, why? And I would never get a satisfactory answer. They look at you, they stare at you, and they don't say anything. I handled cases of homicides, crimes committed by juveniles, non-support of wives and children, beaten spouses, neglected children, children in need of supervision, and adoptions. I felt like I was called to make a change, and I did. I and my team put an end to the assignment of probation officers based on race or religion and enacted a requirement so that publicly funded private child care agencies would accept all children, regardless of their ethnic background. I also worked with Eleanor Roosevelt to put forth a program with a goal of ending juvenile crime amongst the young men. I was so glad to be helping and fighting for these families because I was also a victim of such problems. Back in 1943, my husband had passed away just 2 years after I had given birth to my son, York. I was devastated and was a single parent for 7 years, and it was really hard for me to take care of my son and pursue a full-time career at the same time. But I don't think I shortchanged anybody but myself. I did not get all the sleep I needed. I felt my first obligation was to my child. In 1950, I made a decision and married Walter Offutt Jr. In 1974, he also passed away from lymphoma. These heartbreaking events and challenges didn't distract me from assisting and helping others. I served for 40 years and reached my term limit. I didn't want to retire, but I had no choice. After my retirement, I served in the New York State University Board of Regents, where I handled disciplinary cases and tutored students. I became a member of the NAACP, the National Urban League, and the Child Welfare League. I've always done the kind of work that I like. Families and children are so important to our society, and to dedicate your life to trying to improve their lives is completely satisfying. We have to fight every inch of the way in the face of sometimes insufferable humiliations. I'm known for being the first to do a lot of things, but that's beside the point. I'm just so glad I was able to join in this fight and help many families and individuals improve their lives. There were times where I felt powerless, like I couldn't do anything, but anyone can change the world, even if it's just a small one.